Today is Friday, May 17th, and I'd like to welcome everybody to my 10 and 20-minute NFL Team Series preview. And what this is kind of an ambitious project, my latest project, as far as I'm going to be discussing in 10 and 20-minute increments each team in the NFL, where they are right now as we have finished the final phase of the off season, as you would call it, in terms of getting ready for the upcoming 2024 season. So basically, what I want to do is show you a little bit about what these 10 and 20-minute previews are going to look like. So let me start with the first slide here. And the first slide is basically what's the purpose of this? And it's really to give a glimpse into the process that I use in terms of getting ready for the NFL. It's something that I don't want to make snap decisions in the middle of August and say, okay, I'm playing catch up. I want to be on top of things all the way through. So the purpose is to let you know what process I'm going through. And then if I verbalize it and I write about it and I talk about it, it helps me clarify where my strongest opinions are and where I still need information. We know a lot of things right now in May, but we still have to see some of these teams with new coaches and new coordinators, how they look on the field, how they look during July and August, even though there's only 2 or 3 preseason games that some of the starters are going to play in. We get some kind of information from that. So I'm going to put the final touches on what I've done all off season. The first thing I've done is take a look at last season, put together some of the key stats, figures that I thought each team did well in, their strengths, each team did not so well in their weaknesses. You know, what made Carolina have the weakest record in the league? What made Kansas City overcome a rest differential in December and turn on the Jets in January and take it all the way to the Super Bowl? So I've looked at all that. I've looked at random information such as fumble disparities. I've looked at Pythagorean theorem principles. That's basically when a team goes 8-8 but outscores another team by 75 points. Well, wait a second, maybe their 8-8 record should have been a little bit higher, but other random things came into play. Or vice versa. If a team went 11-5, but basically like the Minnesota Vikings did in 2022, they had a tremendous record, 13 wins, but they only outscored opponents by about 5 points. We knew there was going to be regression to the mean there. So I put that together. I have basically a spreadsheet that I can show right now. It's not a slide, but a spreadsheet as to what I've done. And each column has some information on it: turnover information, stat sheet information, my feelings about the new offensive and defensive coordinators, free agency, and my pre-draft thoughts. I finished my overall draft recap now, 70,000 words, basically 2 full pages, over 2,000 words per team. So I have a good snapshot of where I feel the teams are, and I want to go ahead and verbalize that and put that together in the team previews so you can see where the teams are strongest in what positions, in my opinion, and what things they still need to work on. And just 2 days ago, May 15th, we had the schedule release. And I'm probably about 48 hours away from digesting all the nuggets that I want to digest for the schedule release and get that into my talk. And that's why the actual team previews will start next week after I've digested the schedule release. So I've got a lot of information that's going to be covered. I'm going to go through the draft for each team. I'm going to talk about the hits and misses, what needs are left unfilled. And then I'm going to talk about where I feel they are as of this moment in terms of their divisional outlook, the posted season wins, how I feel about that. I know it's a fluid dynamic that's going on. Season wins have already started to change based on the schedule release, based on what teams did in the draft, based on the fact that more eyes are on the NFL now that the schedule is released. So there's more action that's going on, more of the offshore and more of the Las Vegas casinos and casinos across the regulated United States that authorize gambling. Season win totals are coming up in a majority of places now. So we're starting to see some movement there. And then I'll give you some final thoughts, some areas where I think differentiates this team from another team. And I'm going to give examples in this preview and overview as we go through. Why do I call it 10-minute recap as opposed to 20-minute recap? The 10-minute recap are my solo, no guests. I'm just going to go through, and you're not going to see this overview. I'm just going to get right into it, where they are prior to the draft. How did the draft did the draft meet their needs? What are the areas left unfilled? I'm just going to go right into it all the way through nuggets, very brief description, but a lot of nuts and bolts are going to be covered in that 10 minutes. Where it's 20 minutes is like last year when I did kind of a pre-draft overview and I had special guests for each team. This time we're to the point where we have all the information. I'm going to bring on some special guests and I'm going to quiz them. If there's a guest, for example, for the New England Patriots, when I have Jeff Dawson on, who covers New England and he's very big on the East Coast in terms of has his eye to what's going on with the New England Patriots, I'm going to quiz him about how he felt the draft went. I'll still have my nuggets in there, but there's quite a benefit to me and hopefully to everybody who watches this when I have a guest, because it adds an additional perspective. You get conversational. We play off each other in terms of what's going on. Maybe we'll have some differences. Maybe we'll see things the same way. My final takeaways will still be there, but you'll get extra final takeaways. You'll get some from a guest as well. So it's kind of nice that you get a chance to see two perspectives. So when I put up a sample page like this, it's going to show the team name. Let's say it was the Carolina Panthers, and it's going to show my top needs, as you can see on the screen there. This is just a random example where I say defensive back, they need 2 defensive backs, offensive line, run stopper. It's not the exhaustive list of needs. It's my top needs, and it's going to be in order. So in this random sample, I would say defensive back is their most important need, offensive line, their second most important need, run stopper, their third most important need. Then we go over and we look at the draft picks. In the first round with the 23rd pick, they picked a safety. I'll talk a little bit about the safety, what he brings to the table. No pick in the second round. The third round, pick 95, was an edge rusher. Then a running back in the 4th round, a place kicker in the 6th round. This sample just has 4 draft picks, but obviously when we go through some of the teams, you're going to see 11, 12 draft picks, and in some cases 5, 6 draft picks. Now, I'll have some ratings on them. I'll talk to you about the ratings that I had on these particular players, but what you can see here, according to this example, if defensive back was my number 1 need, this team did not take a defensive back. They didn't take an offensive lineman. They probably didn't even take a run stopper. So this would be an example of a team that I would feel misfired during the draft. But this is what it's going to look like for each team. When I start with Buffalo, you're going to see what my needs are for Buffalo, and you're going to see who they drafted. I'm going to talk about them, and then we're going to talk about the needs that were left unfilled. The next slide then refreshes from the beginning, where we're going to talk about the divisional outlook, their season win outlook, and then my final thoughts. So, for example, if the season win total is 8.5 and their division win outlook is their pick for 2nd or 3rd in the division, I'm going to talk about, well, wait a second, maybe they're stronger than that, maybe they should be considered as one of the favorites in that particular division because they did fill their key needs. They have the quarterback in place. I might even be able to mention some things about the schedule, how favorable it is at the beginning of the season or how unfavorable it is, what the rest differential is. We're going to talk about all those things that matter when we get into how I would predict where their divisional outlook would be right now and where their season win totals are. And then the last page, there's going to be 3, 4, most likely 5 final thoughts that I'm going to put on this slide. When I'm working with a guest, I'm going to play that off and say, okay, guest, what do you think about what I've listed here? What are your final thoughts for this team? These are the final takeaways that I want to share with everybody. In this case, these are random. I would say something like, this draft was a step in the right direction, and I would explain why. We'll talk about the turnover ratio. There's a lot of random turnover ratio that happens with fumbles. Sometimes if you change quarterback, if you go from a careful quarterback to a quarterback who's more of a risk taker, or if you have an offensive coordinator who's more of a risk taker, then you understand that turnovers may spike upwards or downwards. In the NFL, each turnover is worth 3.5 points. So in this example, if this turnover ratio, this team minus 11 last year, that's 38.5 points that they lost due to turnovers. If they flip that and they just have a 0 turnover ratio for this upcoming season, they've saved 38.5 points, which is more than a win. It could be a win and a half in terms of the season win ledger. So it's very important to talk about turnover ratios when applicable. Uncommon opponents. You're going to hear that a lot from me from slide to slide. First place teams play other first place teams. Fourth place teams play other fourth place teams. So if all things are created equal in a division, if you have an enormously tough division like Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore is going to play the first place schedule. Cincinnati is going to play the fourth place schedule. Those things matter as well. As they're applicable, they may appear in my final thoughts. We may also get some other random nuggets, such as higher scoring games versus lower scoring games because there's a new coordinator, because there's a new quarterback. I'm going to bring that kind of thing up. And then some early keys, looking at their schedule. They have to get out of the schedule the first 3, 4 games. They need to get that first win under the belt. That early bye week, when does that happen? These are examples of what the final thoughts are going to look like, that final slide that's going to come up, that hopefully there are takeaways that if you look at this, you're going to say, Ron, thanks. You're on the right track. I didn't think about that. Or you're going to question it and say, no, I disagree. But it's going to get you thinking about the particular team, whether you agree with me or whether you disagree with me. At least you'll be thinking about that particular team, because right now we have so much data on all these teams. Not much is going to change between now and 3 months from now, to be honest. There may be an injury, there may be a holdout, there may be a late June 1st designated cut, maybe a trade, but those things can be fixed. You can think about that in 2 minutes and make adjustments. But when the schedule came out, when the draft was done, all the furor that happened during free agency, you've got to really think and concentrate on all this. And that's where all the work came in. There's not that much more work that needs to be done between now and mid-August, which I appreciate. All 32 teams will be covered. Hopefully I get all through this. There'll be a break in between for a little trip to Hawaii, which will be great. The information presented here may not be put out there. I'm not on a lot of other people's podcasts. There will be some perhaps with Chris and others as we get closer to the season, but I may choose not to share some of the nuggets that I put here. Even though I don't have thousands and thousands of followers, if you bookmark this and if you listen to some of this, you will get information here that I may not present elsewhere. So hopefully that's a bonus and will keep you coming back if you're interested in a team or a division that some of the things I'm going to put here, I'm not going to say in other places. The shows are going to come in on random times. The first couple of shows that I do, which will be solo shows, will be starting Monday, May 20th. That's when I've already got the schedule down. I've got all the information I need, and I can go through these rapid fire 10 minutes at a time. The first shows will be on the 20th, but I'll announce them on Twitter. I'll announce, if you subscribe on YouTube, you'll get a notification as when the show is going to come. But they could come at 8 p.m. one day and 10 o'clock the next day. It depends on if I'm having a guest, what my schedule is, and so on. But you can always go back and look at them. We have some free time because there's no games that are going to be played in the NFL until August preseason and September. But I just want to give you a heads up. There's not going to be a set time for any of these particular shows. You can always find them again on my YouTube page or check my Twitter. I want to know what's working and what's not, what you want to see more of. So if you look at the first couple of videos with a guest, without a guest, and so on, and you want me to bring up something that I haven't brought up, if you could please give me a DM in the Twitter, send me a DM or send me, make a question or a note in the actual playback, write a comment, whether it's live or you're seeing this later. Please give me feedback as to how these shows are going. And I would really appreciate that. That would be really helpful to me. So again, this one's going 15, 16, 17 minutes, but my solo shows hopefully will be pretty much cut and dry, get right to it, 10 minutes in length. And then the guest, where you get that extra perspective, that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So thank you for listening to this. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll tune in beginning May 20th to my team by team NFL snapshots as to where they're going, some predictions, some little nuggets, how they did in the draft, what they still need to do. I hope to see you again for Buffalo Bills. I think we'll start with the Buffalo Bills on Monday, May 20th, and I'll see you then.